This story is fictional and created to highlight real-life lessons about justice, choices, and consequences. He didn't even know she'd hit record. The camera sat on her desk, red light blinking, while her father slept just one room away. By morning, he'd never wake again. And the girl behind that camera, she wasn't crying. She wasn't panicking. She was watching. When police arrived, she opened the door herself, barefoot, calm, and said just 3 words. He's not moving. What they found inside that house shocked even the most hardened detectives. And when the judge finally read her sentence, his voice trembled for the first time in 30 years. Because what this 16-year-old did wasn't just murder, it was a test. One she believed the world deserved. Before we show you what really happened that night, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. And make sure you're subscribed with that bell icon turned on. Because this story starts with silence and ends with a sentence no one ever escaped. The recording begins with a breath, not a sob, not a gasp, just a single measured inhale. 911, what's your emergency? A girl's voice replies, flat and steady. My dad's not moving. All right, sweetheart, can you tell me your name? Maya Reed. And what's going on, Maya? A pause, then, he's cold. The dispatcher hesitates, waiting for panic that never comes. Is he breathing? I don't think so. Are you safe right now? Is anyone else in the house? No, just us. It's the tone that makes the operator glance up at the supervisor. That calm, deliberate diction that doesn't belong in a 16-year-old describing death. She sounds like she's reading instructions off a page. When first responders arrive 10 minutes later, the street outside 214 Maple Row is silent, except for the low hum of a faulty streetlight. It's a cramped duplex at the edge of town, one half boarded up, the other lit by a single lamp behind yellow curtains. The snow on the front step has been brushed aside with precise sweeps. Officer Laramie knocks once. Police! Miss Reed! The door opens immediately. Maya stands there, barefoot, in an oversized hoodie, her hair damp as if recently washed. Behind her, the air smells faintly of cleaning fluid and iron. Her eyes are pale gray, her posture straight. He's in his room, she says simply. I didn't touch him. The officers exchange a look. Protocol takes over. Laramie enters first, body cam blinking red, followed by his partner, Hernandez. The house is small. Kitchenette to the left, narrow hallway leading to 2 bedrooms. Everything is too clean. No clutter, no dishes in the sink, just a quiet that feels arranged. They find the victim lying on a mattress without sheets. The rest of the details go into the report, sealed from public release. But the smell tells the truth before the coroner does. Maya stays on the couch, wrapped in a gray blanket. She doesn't cry. She doesn't ask questions. When Hernandez kneels to check for signs of self-harm, she flinches only when he touches her wrist to take a pulse. Are you hurt, honey? No. Do you know what happened to your dad? She looks past him toward the hallway, voice almost curious. Something went wrong, I think. The sergeant arrives 20 minutes later and crouches beside her. We're going to need to take you somewhere safe for a little while, all right? Okay. You have any family nearby? No. Anyone we can call? A friend? A long pause, then very quietly. No one. The paramedics whisper to each other on the porch. One of them, young and still soft-hearted, says he's seen trauma shock before, but never this kind, the kind where the eyes don't even flicker. Inside, Officer Laramie notices something on the computer desk, a still glowing monitor showing a frozen web page, the title bar reading, Connection Lost. He moves the mouse, but the screen doesn't respond. The old tower hums on anyway, fan grinding like a tired breath. By the time the coroner's van pulls away, the neighbors are gathering at their doors in robes and slippers, whispering. One of them tells a reporter later that Maya was always quiet but polite, the type who carried books bigger than her. Another swears she saw her father every morning, catching the early bus with a lunchbox and a thermos. No one saw this coming. As the squad car doors close, Maya turns her head toward the flashing lights. Her reflection in the window is split by the red and blue pulses. Calm, symmetrical, almost curious. "Where are you taking me?" she asks. "To the station," Officer Hernandez replies gently. She nods once. "Do I need to stay there?" "For now, yes." Maya looks out into the dark street, eyes following the shadow of her house until it disappears behind the frost. Then she says, almost to herself, "Okay, I just thought I'd already left." Fade out on the siren echo, swallowed by snow and static. Before she ever learned the word nihilism, Maya Reed already lived inside it. Her world was a one-bedroom duplex on the edge of an industrial town where freight trains drowned out lullabies and the tap water always ran yellow for a few seconds before clearing. The neighbors came and went, renters chasing cheaper rents, but Maya and her father, Daryl, stayed. Not because they liked it, because it was what they could afford. He worked wherever a day's pay was offered, moving pallets, scrapping metal, patching roofs when the weather allowed. By evening, he'd come home with hands that smelled like rust and gasoline, and a smile that was always just one exhaustion away from collapse. He wasn't a bad father, just a tired one. When Maya was 8, she started asking questions no one knew how to answer. Why are we alive if we're just going to die? Why do people have to work every day? Why do good people get sick? At first, teachers praised her for being curious. Then, when the questions kept coming and her tone stayed flat, they started sending her to the counselor. "It's okay to wonder," he told her, "but don't let your thoughts take you away from people." She'd nodded, but the truth was that people had never really felt real to her. They were patterns. Predictable, self-repeating, smiles when happy, frowns when sad. Easy to imitate, easy to fake. Her mother had left when Maya was 3. No note, no explanation. Just gone. Daryl told her once that her mother needed space, then refused to speak of it again. The house kept her absence like an echo. Maya found her first escape at age 10, a discarded desktop computer from the local library's recycling bin. Daryl couldn't afford repairs, but Maya scavenged parts from junk piles and YouTube tutorials until it whirred to life with a cough of dust. That machine became her world, a blinking window to anywhere that wasn't 214 Maple Row. She used it for homework first, then for trivia games, then for things that weren't meant for kids. By 12, she'd learned to bypass filters at the public Wi-Fi spot outside the diner. By 14, she was spending nights chasing answers to questions most adults avoid asking, about death, about pain, about what made people stop caring. At school, she was neither bullied nor popular. She simply existed in the blank spaces between cliques. Teachers liked her essays, articulate, emotionless dissections of moral problems. One teacher wrote in a margin, "Brilliant analysis, but why so detached?" She never answered. Her only friend was a boy from 2 grades up. Quiet, lanky, the kind who laughed under his breath at jokes no one else heard. He had a cracked phone and a strange confidence in how things worked online. They bonded over games, trading mods and cheat codes, filling long nights with pixelated worlds that felt freer than real life. When he mentioned hidden corners of the web, Maya's first reaction wasn't fear, it was interest. She asked what that meant. He said it was where truth doesn't wear a mask. That line stuck with her. Her father noticed her slipping away, not all at once, but in small, irreversible steps. She stopped joining him for dinner, claiming study sessions. She left her room light on long after midnight. She stopped looking him in the eye. "Don't go getting lost in that computer," he told her one night. "World's ugly enough without seeing the worst of it." She didn't answer. She just stared at the reflection of his face on the screen and wondered, what makes some people see ugliness and others see truth? That was the night she wrote in her notebook. The world is a system that rewards indifference. Maybe feeling nothing isn't broken. Maybe it's efficient. It was meant as philosophy. It became prophecy. It began like every other late night. The hum of the old computer, the flicker of the ceiling bulb, the faint sound of wind sliding past the window seams. Maya sat cross-legged on the threadbare carpet, her face lit blue by the screen. It was the only light she seemed to need anymore. Her father had gone to bed hours ago. She heard his door click shut, the rhythmic creak of bed springs, then silence, the kind of silence that made her heart beat louder. That's when she signed in. The boy had sent her a message earlier that week. A string of cryptic instructions she didn't quite understand, but followed anyway. "You'll see what I mean," he'd typed. "Don't freak out. Just observe." Just observe. He knew that was all it took to hook her. At first, it was only a text. Threads full of people claiming to be something they weren't. Soldiers, hackers, philosophers, a strange kind of digital underground where cruelty was discussed like mathematics. The further she scrolled, the less it shocked her. People described terrible things with perfect grammar. They spoke of suffering like it was science. That fascinated her. Then came a link. She hesitated for a full minute before clicking it. The boy's last message blinked on the screen. "This is where they stop pretending." The page loaded slowly, as if the computer itself didn't want to show her. The image froze, skipped, then stabilized. Grainy footage. No sound. For the first time, Maya saw something that didn't look like a movie, didn't feel like fiction. She should have looked away, but she didn't. What disturbed her most wasn't what happened in the video. It was what didn't. There was no music, no scream, no drama, just stillness. The victim's face blank, the camera unmoving. The entire sequence dragged on too long, past the point of reaction, until she found herself leaning closer, not repulsed, but studying. When the screen went black, Maya didn't feel horror. She felt curiosity. She clicked replay. She watched again and again, until the shapes on screen became abstract, the way repetition dulls meaning. Somewhere, she remembered hearing that desensitization was a defense mechanism, that the brain shuts off to protect itself. But she didn't feel protected. She felt awake. After that, she sought more, not out of thrill, but to understand. Each night, she went a little deeper. New usernames, new links, new fragments of a world where empathy had been traded for proof. She began taking notes. She cataloged timestamps, behaviors, durations, detached, analytical, like she was conducting research. Her notebook filled with columns labeled fear, restraint, and outcome. She wrote, "They look like people, but they've stopped behaving like them." Maybe that's freedom. It wasn't long before she stopped sleeping. School became background noise. Her grades stayed high because intelligence came easy to her, but her eyes looked different. Flat, reflective, like glass, catching light but never absorbing it. The boy kept sending her links. "You're one of the only ones who doesn't look away. You get it, right? How fake most people are." Sometimes she didn't reply. Sometimes she typed long messages she never sent. She didn't know why, but lately his words felt smaller than what she was learning on her own. One night he asked her, "What's the worst thing you've ever seen?" She typed back, "The world." After that, their conversations changed. The tone shifted from shared fascination to something else, an unspoken dare to keep crossing lines. And eventually, that's when she saw it. The challenge thread. A post pinned near the top of a forum, titled simply, "The Closest Person Challenge." Rules scrolled beneath in bold text. Philosophical language mixed with digital nihilism. No names, no motives, just one sentence repeated 3 times like a commandment. Prove your detachment. Prove you understand. Eliminate your closest connection. Maya stared at it for nearly an hour. She thought about her life, her isolation, her father asleep behind the wall. And then she closed the tab. But the phrase didn't leave her. It lingered through breakfast, through school, through the sound of her father laughing at a TV rerun that night. It echoed under every word he said to her. closest person. That was the moment the story began to bend. To anyone looking in from the outside, Maya Reed's life hadn't changed much. Same walk to school, same quiet seat in the back of class, same gray hoodie with the torn sleeve cuff she twisted around her fingers when bored. But inside her mind, the lines between home and online had started to dissolve. Her father still tried, still left notes on the fridge, worked till 6, dinners in the fridge, still knocked on her door before bed, still offered tired smiles. But Maya's eyes rarely left her screen anymore. When she wasn't logged into her school assignments, she was logged into something else. Private servers, encrypted chats, endless tunnels of conversation that no teacher or adult could track. Her world wasn't measured by days anymore, but by links and passwords and how deep she could go before sleep dragged her offline. At first, it was just watching, reading, observing. Then came the private messages. One night, she received a new notification. User 17, you've been seen. She hesitated. She'd been warned about traps, about fake moderators, about stings, but the next message appeared before she could close the chat. User 17, we noticed your notes, your observations. They're clean. You understand what this is. Maya, who are you? User 17, does it matter? The conversation that followed stretched for hours. Philosophical, cold. They asked questions that sounded like riddles. If emotion is chemical, why treat it as sacred? If death is inevitable, why fear those who create it? Would you rather live pretending or die proving you see through it? By dawn, Maya's notebook had 3 more pages filled with questions, none with answers. That became their rhythm. Anonymous messages at night. Assignments disguised as philosophy. She didn't know who they were. Maybe a single person, maybe a group. But the voice behind the screen spoke like someone who understood her restlessness. Her father didn't. Daryl had always been rough-edged, but decent. The kind of man who thought the world could be fixed by hard work and faith. He'd stopped asking about her mother years ago. He'd stopped asking about her friends too. But lately, he started asking about her computer. What are you doing on that thing all night? He asked one evening while she ate cereal for dinner. Homework. Homework don't keep you up till sunrise. She didn't answer. He tried again the next day. You got dark circles, Maya. You okay? She just nodded. That's when he started checking the modem light, unplugging it before bed. So Maya began running it through her old phone's hotspot instead. She always stayed one step ahead. Then, one night, a package arrived. No return label, no sender, just her name, written in thick black ink. Her father found it first. You order something? No. He tossed it onto her desk. Then it's going back tomorrow. Don't want no trouble. That night, after he fell asleep, she opened it. Inside was a small silver vial sealed with wax and a note written in symbols she recognized from the forums. Angular, cryptic, almost ritualistic. Beneath the markings, a single sentence stood out in English. For when you're ready to prove you understand. Maya stared at it for a long time. She didn't feel fear, only a dull curiosity. The liquid inside shimmered faintly when tilted under her desk lamp. She placed it in the drawer beside her notebook. Then she opened her messages. Maya. I got it. User 17. Then you know what comes next. Maya. What is it? User 17. It's mercy. It helps you detach. She didn't ask more. She just typed, okay. From that night on, she stopped dreaming. At school, she barely spoke. Her essays became darker, written in clipped sentences that made teachers uneasy. One assignment, titled The Human System, ended with the line, morality is just control disguised as a comfort. When her English teacher called her in after class, Maya smiled politely. It's just philosophy, she said. You said to write what we believe. Her teacher couldn't argue with that. At home, her father started locking his bedroom door at night. He didn't know why. Just a father's instinct when something in the air feels off. But instinct wouldn't save him, because somewhere between those encrypted messages and that silver vial, Maya had already made up her mind. It happened on a Sunday night, the kind that felt too quiet to be real. The town slept under a thin fog that muffled every sound. Inside the duplex, the heater clicked on and off, filling the silence with tired sighs. Maya's father had worked a double shift. He came home late, his boots leaving damp prints across the linoleum, his breath heavy with the smell of winter air and exhaustion. He dropped his jacket on the couch, opened a can of beans, and ate standing up, eyes half closed. "Go to bed, kid," he said when he noticed her still awake. She nodded. "In a bit." He didn't see the small glass vial on her desk, the one that gleamed under the dim bulb like a secret waiting to be told. When his bedroom door shut, Maya sat in front of the computer. The chat window was already open, waiting. User 17. "You ready?" Maya. "Yes." User 17. "You know what to do?" Maya. "I remember." User 17. "Record everything. Proof matters." She stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Her pulse wasn't racing. It was calm, methodical. Every step she took that night would later be replayed frame by frame by investigators. But at that moment, there was no sense of consequence, only clarity. Maya mixed the contents of the vial into her father's tea, the one he left half-finished every night on the counter. The substance had no color, no odor. It dissolved instantly. Then she waited. At 11:14 p.m., she heard a faint crash from the bedroom, the cup shattering against the floor. She stood, walked down the hallway, and opened the door. Daryl was sitting upright in bed, blinking rapidly. His pupils were wide, unfocused, his limbs trembling as if his body no longer obeyed him. "Dad?" she whispered. He turned toward her slowly, movements sluggish and jerky. His voice came out slurred. "Maya, what's happening?" She stepped closer, the camera lens on her laptop still recording from the nightstand behind her. "It's okay," she said softly. "You're just going to rest." What did you—" His words tangled, lost somewhere between panic and paralysis. His arms moved like underwater shadows. Maya reached for the hunting knife she'd hidden beneath her hoodie. It wasn't a kitchen knife. It was old, heavy, the kind her father used to gut fish on weekends. She remembered the instructions from user 17. "Do not rush, observe, distance yourself from noise." She placed the blade against his chest, watching his eyes widen, his breath shallow and erratic. For a moment, his face shifted. Not fear, but recognition, the look of a parent trying to understand their own child and failing. "Maya," he croaked, "please." She closed her eyes. The first strike wasn't clean, it never is. She didn't scream, he did. A sound that never made it outside those walls. She paused between motions, steadying herself, listening to the rhythm of his breaths grow shorter. At 11:27 p.m., his voice stopped. The video, later retrieved from her computer, showed her standing motionless for nearly a full minute afterward. No expression, no movement, just breathing. Then she tilted her head slightly, as if analyzing her own reflection in the dark window. Finally, she whispered, "Done." She left the room, washed her hands, and came back with plastic sheeting from the closet. She didn't cry. She didn't rush. She worked. The recording ended at 12:02 a.m. When the coroner later reviewed the footage, he asked to leave halfway through. Even Detective Fields, who'd seen gang homicides and traffic manglings, couldn't finish the last few minutes. When Maya sat beside the body and said in a whisper, almost clinically, "The mind leaves before the body. That's the humane part." The digital timestamp in the corner of the screen blinked steadily, indifferent. By morning, the video had been uploaded, not to the dark web, as she intended, but intercepted by the same network that had sent her the challenge. Someone else posted it anonymously, someone who wanted the world to see what detachment looked like. The call came in just before sunrise. A neighbor had heard nothing, no shouting, no struggle, but had noticed something else. Maya's front door left slightly ajar, light flickering inside, and the faint metallic smell carried by the cold. Officer Laramie was first on scene again. It was quiet when he arrived, his breath fogging in the morning air. The snow had stopped falling sometime after midnight, leaving the street coated in pale glass. The house looked ordinary, almost peaceful. He pushed open the door with 2 fingers, calling softly, "Police! Anybody home?" No answer, just the low hum of the heater and the faint buzz of an old computer still running. He found Maya in the living room, sitting cross-legged on the floor, wrapped in a blanket, her hair wet as if she'd just showered. In her hands was a cracked mug of cold tea. Her eyes were vacant, her expression neutral, neither scared nor sad. "Sweetheart," he said cautiously, "where's your dad?" She pointed down the hallway. "He's in there." Laramie's partner went ahead while he stayed with the girl. Moments later came the radio burst that froze the room. "Dispatch, confirm. Adult male, no pulse. Scene secured." Laramie felt a hollow drop in his chest. He looked at Maya again. "Did you call for help?" "Yes." "Why didn't you leave the house?" "I didn't need to," she said simply. "It was already over." Within minutes, the small duplex filled with movement. Detectives, paramedics, forensics teams stepping carefully through the tight hallway. They found no signs of forced entry. No broken locks, no stolen valuables. But they did find something far stranger. On the desk near the bedroom window sat Maya's old computer, its screen frozen on a looping upload bar, 7% complete. When the technicians accessed the drive, they discovered the hidden folder labeled only with a single symbol. Inside were videos, many. Some appeared to be downloaded clips of violence, archived from dark web links, but one file stood apart. It was time-stamped 11:14 p.m. and labeled Final Proof. They opened it, and in that instant, any illusion that this was a robbery or a panic killing disappeared. The room fell silent except for the audio, slow, steady breathing, and the faint creak of floorboards. Detective Fields turned to the uniformed officer standing behind him. "Get her out of here, now!" At the station, Maya didn't resist. She sat quietly, hands folded, waiting for questions that never seemed to surprise her. Detective Fields entered the interview room at 9:02 a.m. He'd already seen the full recording. He didn't bother with the usual pleasantries. "Maya," he began carefully, "do you know why you're here?" She nodded once. "Because of my dad." "Do you know what happened to him?" "Yes." Fields glanced at the mirror behind her. The psychologist observing on the other side scribbled notes. Flat tone, consistent eye contact, absence of affect. "Can you tell me what you did last night?" "I made tea. I watched a video, then I helped him sleep." "What kind of video?" She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "The kind that shows truth." "Who sent you the vial, Maya?" Her smile vanished. "No one. We traced a package to a P.O. box in another state. You didn't order it yourself, did you?" Silence. Fields tried another angle. "You told the dispatcher your father wasn't moving. Why didn't you say he was hurt?" Her eyes flicked upward toward the ceiling. "Because words don't change anything." She said it like she was explaining gravity. When they told her about the video upload, how it had been intercepted, how they'd found her chat logs, she didn't flinch. The only thing she asked was whether it had finished uploading before the police came. It hadn't. Her only reaction was a sigh, soft, disappointed, like a student who'd almost passed a test. By noon, the evidence was overwhelming. The vial's chemical analysis revealed a synthetic paralytic traced back to a darknet vendor linked to human experimentation threads. Her fingerprints covered the packaging, and her handwriting matched the notebook found beside the keyboard, filled with chilling notes in meticulous handwriting. Heart rate 82, slowed after 5 minutes. Loss of speech before motor control. Proof of detachment requires precision. When she was formally charged with first-degree murder, she didn't cry, didn't ask for a lawyer, didn't even protest. She just said, "You can't punish understanding." As officers led her away in handcuffs, one of them whispered, "Kid, you'll never leave this place." Maya looked up at him, her expression unreadable. "I already haven't," she said. The official report described Maya Reed's interrogation as non-confrontational and compliant. That was the polite version. The footage, recorded by 2 cameras in the windowless interview room, told a different story. It would never be released to the public in full, but those who viewed it behind closed doors said it stayed with them long after, not because of what Maya said, but because of how she said it. The video begins at 9:58 a.m. Maya sits at the metal table, posture perfect, wrists resting lightly in front of her. A half-empty paper cup of water sits untouched. Across from her, Detective Fields flips open a notepad. A digital clock ticks quietly in the corner of the frame. Fields, you've already told us your father's dead. I need you to help me understand how that happened. Maya, you already know. You watched it. Fields, we need to hear it from you. Maya, why? So you can decide if I sound sorry? Her tone isn't defiant. It's eerily calm, like she's explaining the rules of a game no one else remembers playing. Fields studies her. You're 16. This isn't the end of your life, Maya. But it could be the start of something much worse if you don't start being honest with me. Maya. Honest? You mean emotional? Fields. No, I mean truthful. Maya. Truth is boring. Everyone wants the version with tears. She glances at the mirrored wall. You think I don't see them watching? From behind that glass, Dr. Lena Carver, a forensic psychologist, makes notes in silence. Effective flattening, detached presentation, no reactive emotion. Fields leans forward. Then let's skip the performance. Tell me about the package. Maya blinks once, expression unchanged. It came like everything else does, when I asked for it. Fields. Who sent it? Maya. Someone smarter than you think. Fields. Name? Maya. Doesn't matter. He's not real anymore. None of them are. Her answers loop in circles, half riddles, half logic puzzles, until Fields finally changes tactics. Fields. Your notebook. Why write down those numbers? Heart rate, time of death. What were you trying to prove? Maya leans back slightly, her eyes distant. You ever wonder if people can die before their bodies stop? Fields. You mean emotionally? Maya. No, I mean comprehension. When they realize nothing means anything, something shuts off. I wanted to see when that happened. Fields glances at Dr. Carver behind the glass, his expression tight. She keeps writing, her pen never pausing. Later in the footage, Maya begins describing the hours before the murder with unsettling clarity, her voice never breaking, her phrasing precise. He looked peaceful. He always does when he sleeps. But I needed to know if peace was a mask. The videos online were missing something real. So I thought maybe truth lives closer than we think. She pauses, then looks straight into the camera. And it did. The silence afterward lasts nearly a full minute. You can hear the air vent humming, the scratch of Fields' pen slowing to a stop. He finally says, You understand what you did was murder? Maya tilts her head. That's a word. You use it when you want to feel like you're still different from me. Fields exhales, closes the notebook. We're done. But before he stands, Maya says quietly, You're wrong about one thing. Fields. What's that? Maya. This isn't the end of my life. It's the first time I've been alive. The footage cuts at that line. The official transcript stops 3 minutes later, with her being escorted out. But the guard who walked her back to the holding cell told colleagues later that she was humming under her breath, some soft, tuneless melody that sounded almost like a lullaby. He asked her what song it was. She replied, Something I heard online. That was the last time Maya Reed ever spoke outside of court. By the time the case of State v. Maya Reed reached trial, it had already taken on a life of its own. News anchors called her the dark web girl. Podcasts dissected her chat logs line by line, debating whether she was a sociopath or a victim of online brainwashing. And outside the courthouse, protesters stood shoulder to shoulder, some demanding the death penalty, others holding signs that read, She needed help, not handcuffs. Inside Courtroom 4B, however, the air was silent enough to hear the cameras clicking. Judge Nathaniel Crowe presided, a man known for his calm demeanor and old-fashioned principles. He'd spent 3 decades on the bench and was not easily shaken. But when the clerk read the charge aloud, first-degree murder of Daryl Reed. He admitted later that he felt the room temperature drop. Maya entered flanked by 2 deputies, wearing a plain gray jumpsuit. Her hair had been trimmed short since her arrest. No makeup, no tears, no visible fear. Just that same unblinking calm that had unsettled everyone who spoke to her. When asked for her plea, she said simply, "Guilty." Her defense attorney, a public defender named Robert Keller, quickly interjected, "Your Honor, my client wishes to plead not guilty by reason of diminished capacity." Maya turned her head slightly toward him and whispered something too soft for the microphones to catch. Then she folded her hands again and stared straight ahead. The prosecution opened with logic as sharp as a scalpel. District Attorney Evelyn Marks spoke without theatrics, letting the evidence do the damage. "The defendant," she began, "was not coerced, drugged, or manipulated. She planned, prepared, and executed the deliberate killing of her father for what she called a philosophical experiment. She projected images onto the screen, the sealed vial, the notebook entries, the video time stamped at 11:14 p.m. The jurors flinched when they saw it freeze on a blurred still frame. Maya, standing beside her father's bed, knife in hand, Marks's voice didn't waver. She wrote, "Proof of detachment requires precision. That's not confusion, that's intention." She showed the court Maya's chat logs with user 17, transcripts filled with messages like, "Emotion is a glitch. Pain is the most honest data. Kill the variable you care about most." The jury listened in horrified silence. When the defense took its turn, Keller tried to humanize her. He called Dr. Lena Carver to the stand, the same psychologist who'd observed Maya's interrogation. "Maya is not insane," Dr. Carver testified. "She's intelligent, lucid, and articulate. But she exhibits symptoms of dissociative trauma, prolonged emotional isolation combined with exposure to violent digital content during formative years. The internet didn't make her a killer. It desensitized her to what killing meant." The prosecution countered swiftly. "Doctor," Marks asked, "does desensitization justify dismemberment?" Dr. Carver hesitated. "No, but it explains why she could do it." That was the soundbite every network ran that night. On the 4th day of trial, the prosecution played a 2-minute segment of the unedited video. The court had ruled the full footage too graphic for public display. Even that brief clip changed the atmosphere of the room. Jurors averted their eyes. One woman in the front row began to tremble. Maya didn't. She watched herself on the screen without blinking, but as if she were studying a stranger. When it ended, Judge Crow asked gently, "Miss Reed, do you have anything to say to the court before we proceed?" She rose slowly. The cuffs on her wrists clinked. "People say they want truth," she said, voice low but steady. "But when they see it, they call it evil. My father lived his whole life pretending the world was kind. I just showed him what it really was." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Judge Crow's gavel struck once. "That will be enough." By closing arguments, the verdict felt inevitable. The evidence was airtight, the confession undeniable. Mark's final words were quiet but devastating. "Compassion belongs to those who can feel remorse. This defendant cannot, and society cannot risk another experiment." When the jury returned, their foreman's hands shook as he read the verdict. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Maya Reed, guilty of murder in the first degree." No one breathed. Then Judge Crow leaned forward, his voice firm but almost mournful. "Maya Reed, you are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment with hard labor. You'll never leave this place." Maya looked up at him. Her face was unreadable. "Neither will you," she said softly. "You just don't know it yet." The transfer bus left the courthouse just after midnight. The snow had stopped falling, and the only sound on the empty highway was the groan of chains against tires. In the back row sat Maya Reed, wrists cuffed, ankles shackled, head resting against the frosted glass. She didn't look afraid, she looked curious. When the driver caught her reflection in the rearview mirror, her eyes weren't wide or vacant like most convicts. They were studying, as if she were already cataloging the noise, the motion, the smell of diesel and steel, storing every sensory detail for later analysis. Her destination was the Helena Correctional Labor Facility, an aging state penitentiary tucked deep in the Montana mountains, where winters lasted longer than hope. It wasn't built for teenagers. It wasn't built for anyone fragile. But Judge Crow's sentence had been explicit: life imprisonment with hard labor, no parole consideration for 25 years. They made an exception for her age, because no one, not even the psychologist who testified in her defense, could explain what she was anymore. When the transport doors clanged open, the air hit her like glass. Guards led her through a tunnel of light and wire. The walls smelled of iron and detergent, the floor slick with melted snow from 100 boots. Every sound echoed, gates slamming, dogs barking, orders shouted through intercoms. At intake, they took her fingerprints again, scanned her retina, cut her nails short. The nurse noted her calm pulse and steady breathing. "You on meds, sweetheart?" Maya shook her head. The nurse hesitated, then scribbled something in the margin of her form. They handed her a number, a gray uniform, and a pair of heavy gloves. No one mentioned that the gloves weren't for warmth. They were for work. Life at Helena wasn't like in the movies. There were no dramatic fights, no shouted insults, just endless repetition. Up at 5, count, breakfast, then labor. The prison's labor wing was an old textile floor repurposed for state contracts, military fabric, road flags, cheap uniforms. The looms roared like mechanical lungs, the air filled with lint and heat. Maya was assigned to Station 12. Thread inspection and cutting. Most inmates worked half asleep, shoulders slumped. Maya didn't. She performed every task precisely, mechanically, measuring each fabric strip as if it mattered. Guards started calling her clockwork. One supervisor later told investigators that she never spoke unless addressed directly. When asked if she felt sorry for what she'd done, she replied, "Sorry implies error. I completed what I began." Months passed. The outside world moved on. New cases, new scandals. But for those who worked at Helena, Maya became a kind of ghost story. Officers said she read nothing but physics books from the library, that she'd memorized every machine's rhythm in the textile floor and could tell when one was about to break before it did, that she spent nights sketching diagrams of human anatomy in the margins of prison issue paper. The psychologist assigned to her rehabilitation logs noted something chilling in her quarterly review. Subject remains highly analytical, shows no emotional response to recollection of crime, exhibits interest in systems of control and obedience, requests to work additional shifts as a study of endurance. One winter morning, during a shift change, a guard found her standing at the window of the labor hall, staring out through the fogged glass toward the snowfields beyond the fence. He asked what she was looking at. "Freedom," she said. Then, after a pause, "But not the kind you think." He laughed nervously. "What kind's that?" She turned to him, eyes gray and steady. "The kind that doesn't need leaving." He told the warden later that her voice didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like fact. That night, in her bunk, Maya wrote her first words in months. A single line on the back of a ration slip. "When the world stops pretending to be kind, I'll finally be understood." She folded the slip into a square and tucked it beneath her pillow. The next morning, she was back at her station before the siren even finished ringing. Clockwork. Judge Nathaniel Crow hadn't stepped inside a prison in nearly 15 years. He preferred the distance of the bench, the order, the clean separation between judgment and consequence. But something about the Reed case refused to fade. He'd seen every kind of defendant imaginable: liars, addicts, killers, the desperate and the broken. Yet, Maya Reed wasn't any of those things. She was something rarer, something he still couldn't define. So when a corrections liaison mentioned that she'd been asking for a law dictionary, says she wants to read her own verdict, he agreed to visit. Unofficially, he told the warden. Just curiosity. It was March. The mountains around Helena were still buried under snow, wind scraping across the yard like sandpaper. They met in a glass-walled visitation booth. No cameras, no lawyers, just a guard stationed outside. Maya entered quietly, hands cuffed, gray uniform sleeves rolled halfway up her forearms. She looked thinner, but not frail. Her eyes hadn't changed. Still calm, still searching. "Judge Crow," she said evenly. "I didn't expect you." He studied her. "I didn't expect myself either." They sat across from each other. Silence stretched. The hum of fluorescent lights filled the space. Crow finally spoke. "You've been reading legal texts?" "Yes, I wanted to understand how people decide what's right." "That's what philosophy is for, not criminal law." She tilted her head. "Philosophy asks questions. The law pretends to answer them." He let that sit for a moment. "You don't think justice exists?" Maya smiled faintly. "Justice is an emotion. It only works if people feel it." "You sentenced me to life with hard labor." "That's not justice. It's choreography." Crow leaned back, crossing his arms. "You think I sentenced you for show?" "I think you sentenced me because you had to." He exhaled through his nose. "You think you had to kill your father too?" Her gaze drifted toward the glass wall behind him, where distant snow blew against the fence like drifting ash. "I think everyone does what the system designs them to do," she said softly. "You uphold order. I tested it." Crow felt an old anger rise, a mix of disgust and pity. "You tested it by murdering the only person who ever cared about you." "Care is possession," she replied. "He cared about what I should be, not what I was." For a long time, neither spoke. The silence was heavy, almost reverent. Then Maya leaned forward. "Do you ever think about it at night? My case?" Crow hesitated. "Sometimes." "What do you think about?" He stared at her for a long moment, then said quietly, "Whether I failed you before the world ever did." That was the first time something human flickered in her expression. Not remorse, but surprise. He stood, gathering his coat. "You'll stay here the rest of your life, Maya. You'll never leave this place." She looked up at him, calm as always. "Neither will you." He frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Maya's lips curved slightly, just enough to be unsettling. "You think the walls are built only here, but you still wake up inside them every day." Crow left without another word. Outside, the wind howled through the razor wire, carrying snow across the yard like white sand over graves. He didn't sleep that night. Do you think justice was truly served in this case? Was life with hard labor the right punishment, or proof that even the system can't fix what the world breaks first? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if stories like this make you question how far justice should go, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss a story. Share this with someone who still believes truth always finds its way to the surface, and we'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place, with another story you won't forget. This story is fictional and created to highlight real-life lessons about justice, choices, and consequences.